Join us as we celebrate 3 decades of Commodity Classic, agriculture's largest farmer-led event, February 25th through 27th. Experience game-changing solutions, connect with thousands of forward-thinking farmers, and explore innovations from over 400 companies, all focused on powering your farm forward with efficiency and profitability. Housing and registration opens November 6th. Don't miss 30 years of agricultural excellence in the heart of Texas.
Welcome to Meet the Lawmaker, where we bring you into the halls of Congress for one-on-one conversations with the lawmakers shaping the future of farm policy. We're joined today by Congressman Adam Gray, a freshman Democrat on the House Ag and Natural Resources Committees, who represents a mix of ag and urban areas in California's Central Valley. In addition to his ag trade, labor, and water policy priorities, Congressman Gray shares about his agriculture roots, tying back to his family's dairy supply company and feed store, and how his experience as a state legislator prepared him for Washington. To begin our conversation, we asked Congressman Gray to tell us more about his district.
Well, I represent the 13th Congressional District in California, representing northern San Joaquin Valley, 5 counties, San Joaquin in the north, Fresno in the south, Madera, Stanislaus, all part of this district. And of course, much of this district is what I represented in the state legislature, specifically Merced County and Stanislaus County for over a decade, serving on the Ag Committee, serving on the Water Committee. So my service here in Congress is kind of extension of that work.
And you previously served in the state assembly in California. You know, what originally sparked your interest in politics? And tell me a little about the work that you did in the state assembly on some of these agriculture and water issues.
Yeah, well, I got involved in policy and politics working with a gentleman named Dennis Cardozo, who was our state assemblyman, the chairman of the Ag Committee in the state legislature, and of course he later went on and served in Congress. And so that's really what piqued my interest, and I had the honor later of, serving 10 years in that same capacity myself. I represent one of the largest ag districts in the country, one of the most diverse as well. I grew up in the dairy industry. My grandfather started a company called Merced Dairy Supply that sold dairy equipment and essentially installed that equipment, maintenance it. We had a small family feed store on top of that. And so, like many people from the San Joaquin Valley, agriculture was the experience I had with my family growing up, and have really enjoyed having the opportunity to try to do some good things at both the state level and, of course, now the federal level to support agriculture and to support our communities.
And you mentioned some of your family ties to agriculture. Would love for you to elaborate that on a little bit more, and then tell me why it was so important for you to join the Ag Committee when you came to Congress.
Yeah, it's been a big part of my family. My grandfather on my mom's side was a wheat farmer in North Dakota, in Cooperstown, North Dakota, before they came to California. And then we have ag business people on both sides of the family. My dad's father is the one that started the dairy supply company where my dad worked, and I worked as a young person. And so, yeah, it's been a huge part, of our story in coming to California and being in the San Joaquin Valley. And I think that's a story of a lot of people that I represent too, right? Whether they work directly in agriculture or whether it's a family member or some job supporting, agriculture in these communities. And it's a really neat district that I represent because it's all kind of small to medium-sized farming communities. I often say, everything kind of between Fresno and Stockton that's not Fresno and Stockton, right? All the smaller and medium-sized communities. And of course, huge dairy district, a lot of almonds, a lot of pistachios, and many other crops.
And, now that you're on the Ag Committee, can you tell me what some of your priorities there are? Just sounds like you've introduced an ag trade bill already. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we introduced a bill. Tariffs have been a real challenge for my district and had some really negative consequences post 2018 and continue to really be in a precarious situation today. The combination of uncertainty around tariffs, uncertainty around farm labor, on top of uncertainty around investments that both the state and federal government are making in some of the biocircular, renewable energy stuff, the solar, the methane digesters, just people getting hit from a lot of sides right now. And so, I introduced a bill here to try to rein in the sporadic tariffs and bring that power back to Congress and have a more thoughtful approach, right? That requires more people's input and not just announcing different things every day and bouncing all over the place. I also introduced with my colleagues the Farm Worker Modernization Act, right? To try provide some pathway to citizenship for the folks that are out there working in the fields, our neighbors, families, and friends back home. Also introduced the Dignity Act, a bipartisan immigration bill, 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans, that increases border security, but also provides some certainty and some status for folks that are here following the law, contributing to our economy, working hard, right? And so trying to attack all these issues that relate to the success of our ag economy in the Valley, and also trying to support, we've got the University of California, Merced, Fresno State, CSU Stanislaus, doing a lot of great research. Community colleges like Merced College, which has a tremendous ag department and work training programs and other things. So, we got to make sure they continue to get the support they need from the state and federal government. So those have really been probably not a surprise to people, my priorities since I got here, and serving in both the Committee on Agriculture as well as the Committee on Natural Resources, which focuses, my service there is really focused on water, right? And I always joke back home or, in these interviews with the media where they say, well, what are the three most important issues in your district? I say, well, water, water, and water, right? Because it's just so critical. And California has underinvested, and the federal government has underinvested in California water infrastructure for really half a century. I mean, the last major investment, in the northern San Joaquin Valley was really San Luis Reservoir with President Kennedy. Had an awful lot of presidents since President Kennedy. It seems like we're a little overdue for a big federal investment in California in water to support agriculture.
Yeah, and let's dive into water a little bit more, and we'll circle back to immigration, but your farmers are very heavily reliant on water. Can you tell me a little bit more about water storage needs and what you hope to do legislatively to provide water for your district's producers and those in California?
Yeah, I mean, we're like I said, we're overdue on that investment. We need to do some permitting reform and kind of reduce some technical barriers and paperwork and legal delays and some of the things that happen not just on water infrastructure projects, but infrastructure projects more broadly. But we also need to fund them, right? I mean, this most recent effort by the folks across the aisle in this reconciliation package passed, when that came through the Natural Resources Committee had, I think, $2.5 billion in water storage. I didn't think it was enough. I actually introduced an amendment to make it $6 billion, and I proposed 25 new water projects in California, both north and south of the Delta, that would have, increased 2 million acre feet, right? But we got to make it easier to build those projects. We got to fund those projects. Now, ultimately, the bill that passed and was sent to the president was cut down to $1 billion, which is just not. I mean, to call it the bare minimum would overstate the case, and we just got to do a lot better. So I oppose that in its final package. But I'm going to continue to work with the chairman, in the Resources Committee to try bring at least some of those water projects to fruition. And like I said, that means reforming some of the permitting and challenges there, as well as bringing the federal checkbook to the table and making the investments that California and agriculture deserve.
And I want to circle back. You began to discuss immigration earlier. The current administration has said that the ag industry could be spared from some of those raids, but then said no amnesty will be shown to farm workers. I'm wondering, first, your thoughts on some of these ICE raids on the issue right now, and also, the odds of congressional ag labor reform this Congress. What can be done for undocumented farm workers that are living and contributing here in the United States?
Well, I think the current administration also said that we could replace our farm workers with people on Medicaid. I think the Secretary of Ag said that. And so, it's hard to take some of these comments seriously. There's a lot of rhetoric in politics, a lot of talk on both sides, and people oftentimes pointing fingers. The bottom line is we just need to come together and provide some certainty for those folks that are working hard, that are helping us produce the food that this country needs, and certainly support the ag economy that we have in the San Joaquin Valley. So, that's why I signed on to a bipartisan Dignity Act. There's a lot of provisions in that bill that liberal Democrats don't like. A lot of provisions conservative Republicans don't like. But I think those of us in the middle of the road on both sides that want to get something done and protect our ag economy and protect our economy generally, we're behind it. And frankly, we ought to take it to the floor and put it on the president's desk right away. It ought to be the #1 priority. We've done a half a dozen, maybe a dozen bills related to the quote unquote criminal element. So, we got to do this. We got to protect ourselves from these criminal, immigrant. Okay, I voted for most of them in a bipartisan fashion, but that's a small percentage of the immigrant population that's here. Most of them are just working hard every day and trying to support their families. Well, let's get something done for them, right? Let's not just talk out of both sides of our mouth and get nothing done. Let's just be serious about this, come together in a bipartisan way, and that's what the Dignity Act does. The Farm Worker Modernization Act is another bipartisan effort. And so, if we, in a time like this where politics seems awfully difficult, if folks on both sides of the aisle can come together on something, I think that should send a message that we ought to prioritize those bills and get those bills to the president's desk.
And you've also introduced some legislation, worked on legislation to amend the Endangered Species Act to protect farmers. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Well, that's, kind of speaks to the what I was saying earlier about the barriers, right, to putting more water infrastructure in place and really supporting California agriculture. And some of this is, we should all care about the environment. I've certainly worked on plenty of bills and funded plenty of projects aimed at improving our environment and being good stewards of the environment. But when the Endangered Species Act rather is used to just delay forever these projects, that's not good for the economy, and it's not good for our community. And what my bill seeks to do is strike a little bit of balance between the goals of the Endangered Species Act, but also taking into consideration the needs of an ag economy and of our region and our communities, right? And so I think that's an important discussion. We've got to be able to move water. We've got to be able to store more water, and we need to reopen, that discussion and figure out a way to, like I said, balance the needs of the environment with the needs of our economy.
And you also serve as whip of the Blue Dog Coalition. I'm wondering, in that role, how do you find bipartisanship on some of these issues, specifically those related to agriculture and water and related to our agriculture audience?
I mean, I think it's one of the best caucuses, here in D.C. It's made up of independent-minded Democrats, moderate and conservative Democrats that want to work across the aisle and get things done. And it was kind of first order of business when I got here is to get involved with them. They elected me as their whip and in their leadership group, and I'm working with them to look for every opportunity we can find to work with our Republican colleagues to put at the top of the list, making some of these important fixes, getting rid of government waste where it is, supporting government programs where we need to, and trying to foster a spirit of working together, right? Because if you look at the history of the country, the policies that last are always the ones that are bipartisan, right? This kind of recent trend in DC where when the Republicans in charge, they do a bunch of stuff, and then when the Democrats are in charge, they turn it 180 degrees the other direction. Just not healthy, right? We got to sit down, have the conversations, and everybody's district is different. And that's a real, it's a value of the Blue Dog Caucus to say that we should always put our districts before our party. In fact, I hope sometime soon somebody starts a Red Dog Caucus. If we got a few Republicans on the other side that have the same spirit of getting along, cooperation, bipartisanship, man, I think we could get a lot done. I think we could do not just good things for agriculture and my district, but good things for the country.
And you mentioned you're defending your district first. I'm wondering, with your district, from your time in the state assembly on to now, do you find yourself, defending agriculture and defending those practices? And how do you navigate that when you're working with people that, maybe don't understand these ag practices or water issues or things that the way that these families have survived for decades?
Well, I think education's important. I mean, it's real easy to judge other folks, but it's a lot harder to judge other folks when you get to know them and you spend time in their world, understanding what they do, right? And I think we're all guilty of it at times. And I think I've certainly taken a lot of efforts over the years to invite my colleagues from around California, and I'm certainly going to invite my colleagues from around the country to come see my district, see what makes up the greatest agricultural valley in the world, right? Let's underscore that, because I don't think we say it enough. There is nobody better at agriculture than us in California. We are the biggest and the best. We ought to be proud of that. We ought to invite people to see it and help them understand what it takes to do it, right? Too often, like I said, people want to judge or make changes without really understanding how things work. And I think the first important step is to visit each other. And I say I take people to my district. I'm also willing to go to other people's districts, right? Let's take a look at what they got going on, how we can support that and work together. But we really, this us and them attitude everyone has these days in politics where, it's either for me or for you. We all got to work together, and we should want each other to be successful. We should want the country to be successful. And I believe we can do it.
And Congressman, as we're wrapping up here, I hear that outside of your time in Congress, you're a big baseball fan.
I love baseball. Yeah, I'm a huge Giants fan. Born and raised in Merced, Northern California, and actually went to my first World Series in 1989 when they had the earthquake. I was actually at the game during the San Francisco earthquake, and I just love baseball. Got to play in the congressional baseball team here in my freshman year in Congress, which was a lot of fun. We got to go over to Nationals Park and play the Democrat-Republican games. So that was certainly a nice activity. But yeah, huge baseball fan and huge Giants fan.
Good. You had to have been a draft pick in the congressional baseball game.
We gave it a good go there, but we lost to the Republicans this year, and I guess that's been a few years in a row. So I think we're going to have to put a little more elbow grease in practicing this next year and get a bunch of high draft picks.
Yeah, start practicing now.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Congressman, thanks for your time and thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks for your time. Take care.